Hello. What's on your mind? What's on your mind today, right now, at this moment? Or perhaps not so much what's on your mind, what's in your mind? What is the current condition of your mind? What kind of mental state are you inhabiting right now? This question, or these kinds of questions, are questions which we as Buddhists should be asking all of the time. Our mind is the source of our suffering, and it's also the source of our happiness. So we need to maintain a kind of ongoing investigation into what's present in our mind at any one time. We don't have to be meditating to do this. Of course we can do it while we're meditating, but we can easily do it any time of the day. Just notice what's present in our mind, become aware of that. So in order to investigate the quality or the nature of our mind at a particular moment, we need to have some mindfulness, some awareness to bring to the situation. So the first question we need to ask ourselves is mindfulness present in my experience right now? Is mindfulness part of my mental state right now? We all know, at least to some extent, what mindfulness is, what it feels like. We feel more present, more fully ourselves. We have a certain clarity, certain light and warmth, we could say, when we're mindful, when we're alert and awake to our present situation. So we can recognize whether this is present in our experience or not. If mindfulness is not present in our experience, then, well, we experience the opposite of those things I just mentioned. And the first thing then we have to do is to establish some mindfulness in our experience. We can also ask ourselves, once we've developed some mindfulness, we can begin to see in our mind whether anything is present in terms of greed, hatred and delusion, or the three poisons, which are very often present in our mind. And we shouldn't feel bad about any of these at all, because these are part of the human condition. Every human being experiences greed, hatred and delusion at times. Some people very much of the time, some people less of the time. But we need to be aware of what's present. And we also need to be aware, and this is very important, we need to be aware, we need to notice when greed, hatred and delusion are not present in our minds. Because when those three poisons are not present in our minds, then we experience freedom from greed, freedom from hate, freedom from delusion. So it's really important that we mark those experiences just with our mindfulness. We acknowledge, oh yeah, right now I'm not filled with greed or craving or attachment or desire or wanting. Right now I'm quite content just as I am. I'm free of all that. And we know then that if we can become free of that on this occasion, then we can do it again. Same with hatred or anger or irritability or dislike, aversion, wanting to push things away. When all of those things are not present, then we have freedom. We have a mental state which is free of all those painful states of being, all that anger and hatred. We're free from that in that moment. So we need to mark that. We need to recognize what that feels like. Recognize the freedom of that. And the same with delusion. When we have times when we've woken up, as it were, when we're not living our life in a dream, then we need to recognize that. We need to recognize the clarity of that. We need to recognize the freedom in that. And there's a particular teaching of the Buddha which helps us to investigate our minds in this way, to be vigilant about what's going on in our minds. And this is called the Four Right Efforts. And these four right efforts, they're two pairs really. Two of them relate to positive or skillful mental states, and two of them relate to negative or unskillful mental states. So the first two, relating to skillful mental states, are the effort of developing and the effort of maintaining. So with developing, we need to develop positive or skillful mental states such as loving kindness or mindfulness. We need to develop those when they are not present in our mind. We need to bring them into being. And once we've brought them into being, we need to practice maintenance of those in order to remain for as much as we can in skillful mental states. Doesn't necessarily mean we'll be in blissful states all of the time, really happy states. It just means that we'll be acting skillfully, acting from the opposites of greed, hatred and delusion, acting from loving kindness or love or kindness, acting from mindfulness and awareness, bringing clarity to our situation. And the best way of maintaining these positive mental states, well, there's two things really. One is our ethical behaviour, and the other is regular meditation. So I stress here regular. I know it's very difficult to do regular meditation. It took me a long time to get to a place where I could meditate very regularly. I've been doing that for years now, but I didn't used to be able to. It's not easy. Our old habits just rule us, don't they? They disregard our intentions. But the practice of ethics, the practice of skillful actions, and the regular practice of meditation are excellent ways of maintaining skillful positive mental states. Once they've arisen, of course. You can't maintain them if they're not there. So firstly you develop them and then you maintain them. And moving on to the other two of the four right efforts, the other pair, these are concerning negative or unskillful mental states. And here the efforts are to, first of all, prevent such states from arising in our minds. And secondly, to eradicate them if they have arisen in our minds. So preventing them means being on the lookout, means being alert, guarding the doors of the senses, guarding the gates of the senses. So for example, if we tend to do a lot of browsing on the internet, wanting this or wanting that, maybe just wanting things to look at, or maybe wanting things to buy, maybe we're doing some retail therapy online. But the longer we spend doing that, the more we encourage, the more we are open to craving. I'm not saying we shouldn't do any shopping, that we should never buy anything for ourselves. Of course we should. We need things, don't we? But there is a limit. So just notice, maybe if that's one of your tendencies, just notice how long you spend on the internet wanting things. So in that way, and in similar ways, I'm sure you can find other examples, we can prevent negative or unskillful mental states from arising. But if the prevention doesn't work, then we need to look to eradicate those negative mental states once they've arisen. Now, this is a bit of a tricky one, I think, because I'm not too keen on the word eradication. I haven't thought of a better one at the moment, on the spur of the moment. Because it's not like we can just stamp on this negative mental state or cut it out or chop it off or something like that. Once it's arisen, hasn't it? And the first thing we have to do is acknowledge that we are in this negative mental state. This is what is in our mind at the moment. This is what's on our mind, is this weight of either greed or hatred or delusion, some aspect of those three. So then, with mindfulness, having acknowledged what's present, and having acknowledged that it's not beneficial, that it's not going to lead towards skillful states of mind, then we can just use our awareness to let the negativity dissolve, which it will do in its own, well, not just in its own time, but with the influence of mindfulness and awareness, and with the developing, alongside this, the developing of skillfulness, then negative mental states will shift.